Everyone. I don't usually upload much, but this time I decided now is the time to upload, and this one's pretty fun to draw. So this time I drew Kid Bodega from Gameoverse. I'm not really much of a fan of it, but drawing it was quite fun, and today I'm going to show you on how it was done. It's actually quite simple, really. So first, you basically draw like a big circle. It doesn't have to be black. It can be any other color. And you draw like a rectangle of the body. And do you see that small line? That's like, it's kind of more like an anatomy for the neck. And those circles, which are pretty common to use, those are like the shoulder joints on what they call it as. Let me show you for a moment. Yeah, see? It's kind of like a small curved rectangle. It would be a little bit more simple to do it in this type of form, but you could do it in any form you want to. And then I start drawing the head. Like the head doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to stay like that for long. And you draw like a few curvy lines, which are the hair. It's more like a line art. I know like a lot of line art could be tricky, but it doesn't like always have to be complicating. Now I chose to draw Kid Bodega because there isn't it's not like a very complicating character to draw. So I decided to choose that. And do you see that small gray then line of neck? Yeah, I now decided like to add the neck over there, and the shoulders curved a little bit more to show that the character is like moving, kind of like to make it more realistic. And over here I add the lines going downwards to show that those are the arms. And over here, like you don't have to be like super creative on it. You can be creative if you want to. So like this program I'm using is called Ibis Paint. So you basically select the entire top half of the head, copy and paste it, and reverse it. And as you can see, it's matching up pretty well, fortunately. And I basically draw it again. And if you're wondering why, so first I draw the first outline of the art, so like it would give a more clear representation of what I should add. And now I make the line for the hair even more cleaner and more detailed. And I copy and paste and flip it to reverse, which is matching up pretty well. So most people tend to think that adding color to the characters can be complicating, but it doesn't always have to be that way. It more like depends on what type of colors or effects or a palette you use for it. Like for like most well-known art online, they usually add like simple colors and outlines before adding more features and effects. So it can actually be more simple than you think. But like before like using the bucket tool to fill in the color, you really have to make sure that like the outline is like logging into other outlines, so like the color won't get into other areas that you don't want it to be in. So you have to check it again to make sure it doesn't happen. Like it's not the end of the world. It's usually like a few second mix, but keep that in mind. So over here, I had a little bit of a problem on that area because it's like more like an illusion that I had to add, but you don't really have to be like perfect to do that. It's like a simple keyword though, so you don't have to be that complex on adding it. So for the eyes are pretty simple. I like doing the eyes as well. Sometimes it could be tricky, other times it could be simple. You just like have to like add the eyelashes, like the sharp point sticking out of it. And is that thing called a unibrow? Probably. Actually, it's more like in the center, so it won't really consider to be one. And like the Gameoverse, how do I explain it? It kind of gives off like an anime type of style. I don't really think Gameoverse is considered anime. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like the eyes seem to be very wide, which I do appreciate it because that could actually make it more simpler for you to make the character more detailed. Like I didn't make the eyes fully white, but like almost white. There seems to be like whitish and brownness mixed together. And for the eyes, well, I mean, for the pupils, you have to use a ruler to make it like more proportional, hmm, and you still have to add like this small black line like under the eye to make it look like the eye like stops there, if you get what I mean. Like the entire circumference of the eye surrounding it. And for like the rectangle pupil thing, you really have to make sure the lines are all touching to each other. Otherwise the bucket tool could mess up your drawing, even though you could undo it though. And for here, it's quite simple. You copy and paste it. Yeah, I had to make the eyes a little bit thicker because it looked a little bit weird, so I kind of had to do that smart detail. So for the light reflecting off the pupils, like you do not copy and paste and reflect it. You just have to copy and paste and use the x-axis movement to like move it to that location. Like you cannot like drag it really. Like it could like mess up the proportion and it would be more trickier. So I recommend you using the settings to drag the white square if you want to, or using it for full proportion. Most people don't usually use this type of method, but sometimes if I want to add more details to the character or any form of drawing, like you could lower the capacity of the entire character and add some details like the eyebrows over there. You don't really have to, but it's kind of more simple and more easy to learn and to absorb it. So I really like to use that method. And this one, yes, you have to copy, paste, and reflect it instead of just copy and pasting and dragging it. And for the simple one, like the nose, it's just a small triangle, including the mouth. And And the mouth and the nose is pretty basic. I like that part. And for the whiskers, I had to get it right a few times because sometimes I tend to be obsessed with being perfect. So, so yeah, I had to make sure it didn't look a little bit of like a scribble like. So it did take me a few times, and some I copied and pasted and reflected this, including same goes for this thing. Yeah, most of the drawing is quite simple. It's basically more like a copy, paste, and reflect. So it was actually a really fun drawing to make. It took less than 2 hours. For you, it could be more or less, but overall, it was quite an enjoyable artwork. So this part could be a little bit tricky. I used more like a pastel blush. It's for like grainy textures like the sand, and for the clouds. You have to be a little bit careful using it because sometimes you have to change the settings, and it took me months to understand and brush settings because there's like a lot you could learn from there, and there is still a lot that I don't know about it, even though you could just undo it, but it would be a little bit complicating, so you could use the brushes to achieve this effect. If you're wondering how I made the character look even more detailed and bright, you have to go to the filter settings and make the saturation warmer. It actually makes the drawing look pretty impressive and creative. And even for the clouds, like it kind of looks like a sunset, which I really like. And for the sound, it has like a mix of dark reddish and white color. As even the eyes kind of look detailed. It looks like the eyes from real life if a person was in a sunset photo. So yeah, this was a little bit tricky and risky to add, and I recommend you to duplicate the layer. Like you have to merge all of your layers into this layer, the entire drawing, but you have to always double check, maybe check 3 times if you got everything that you wanted there, because there's a good chance you may not be able to undo it, especially if you were to leave your canvas. Because if you were to leave your canvas, you would not be able to undo, and there's a good chance you could have have a harder time of it. And so I don't recommend you closing out of your tab because when you come back and there was this mistake that you want to fix or undo it, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it would not be possible. So like this was like a small feel I had. So you have to be a little bit careful on that part. So I added another layer called an added light effect layer. So basically, it I used an airbrush for that effect. It makes like everything look brighter, especially for here. Like, did you see that thing over there? I basically use an airbrush to make it look like the sun is like casting over here, and you have to lower the airbrush capacity to reflect off of the hill over here and reflect a little bit on this side and not much light effect on this one because the sun is casting over here, not on top of the head and not on this side. Yeah, I figured it would be a little bit more detailed if I were to add if I were to add an outline light effect over here, which is actually a pretty good, it is a pretty good technique a lot of people use, which actually works quite a lot. Even I enjoy to add it as well. There could be other ways you could add it. I even added some light on those shoulders as well, even over here. Even though light doesn't 100% reflect off of people's shoulders, unless if you were to add something on your shoulders, then yeah, it probably would be. It would make a little bit more sense if I were to add some bright airbrush on the face, only like a tiny bit. Like you have to lower the capacity of your brush a lot in order to do that. If you don't really understand what I'm saying a lot, maybe because due to my phone's mic, I recommend you turning on captions in case. The added light effect wasn't the only effect I used. I also used vivid light and linear light. And there you have it. This is how you make a very detailed Gameoverse fan art. I didn't really have any other ideas on what else to draw, so well, here you go. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.